They said lightning struck the night he was born. But what if that strike wasn't a warning, but a calling? Good evening, and welcome back to Wisdom by the Fireside. In tonight's Figures story, we revisit the life of a man whose mind touched the heavens, and whose heart broke beneath it. He dreamed of giving the world free light, free energy, and a new age of peace. But the same world that benefited from his genius left him to die alone. When the boy named Nikola Tesla came into this world, a storm was raging above a small village in Smiljan, Croatia. His mother, Georgina, lay weak in the candlelit room, while his father, a Serbian Orthodox priest, prayed by her side. As thunder shook the walls, a bolt of lightning illuminated the cradle. The midwife gasped, "It's a bad omen!" But his mother whispered, "No, he will be a child of light." No one in that room could have imagined that those words would define his entire life. As a child, Tesla saw the world differently. The air hummed with invisible music. Sparks danced from his fingertips. He would stare at the stars and whisper, "There must be a way to bring their light down to Earth." But with every revelation came torment. He suffered from strange flashes of light in his mind, overwhelming visions that arrived uninvited. When he tried to sleep, ideas would flood his thoughts faster than he could write to others. It looked like madness. To Tesla, it was divine transmission. One evening, while tending the church candles with his father, Nikola asked, "Father, what is electricity?" His father smiled. "It is the fire of heaven, a gift too powerful for man to hold." Tesla replied softly, "Then maybe God is just waiting for someone brave enough to hold it." He didn't know it yet, but that someone was him, and that gift would become his cross. At 17, Tesla fell gravely ill. Typhoid fever gripped his body for months. He hovered between life and death, whispering prayers into the night. One night, weak and fevered, he looked up through the window at a flash of lightning. He whispered, "If you let me live, I will devote my life to your power, to the light that moves in the sky." He survived. Against all odds, he rose from his bed, pale, trembling, reborn with purpose. From that moment on, he lived like a man on a mission from heaven. At university in Graz, professors called him a prodigy. He could visualize entire machines in his head and make them run without a single sketch. He spoke of energy flowing through the air, of a world connected by invisible waves. His classmates laughed. But when he spoke, there was conviction, as though he had seen what they could only imagine. One professor warned him, "Tesla, such dreams belong to poets and madmen." Tesla smiled faintly. Perhaps they are the same thing. But arrogance crept in, and with it, exhaustion. He gambled away his tuition, dropped out, and disappeared. His father died heartbroken, believing his son had wasted his gift. And for a while, Nikola believed it too. Then came the turning point, a vision by the river. While walking alone one summer day, he watched the water wheel turning lazily. Suddenly, in a flash of brilliance, he saw the future, a motor that would run without touching anything, powered by alternating current, drawn from the earth itself. He fell to his knees in awe. "Lord," he whispered, "you've shown me what the world will one day see." He didn't know it then, but this single vision would ignite a war between light and darkness. In 1884, Tesla arrived in New York City with nothing but a letter of recommendation, 4 cents in his pocket, and a head full of impossible dreams. That letter was addressed to Thomas Edison. Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park, was already a household name, known for his direct current systems and his relentless drive. When Tesla walked into his workshop, covered in dust from his long voyage, Edison looked up skeptically. "So, you're the man who thinks he can improve my electric machines?" Tesla nodded. "Not improve? Perfect." Edison laughed. "We'll see about that." In weeks, Tesla repaired some of Edison's most complex generators. Edison marveled but joked, "When you finish, I'll pay you $50,000. When Tesla did, Edison waved it off. You don't understand our American humor. That day, Tesla learned that genius means nothing without integrity. He left Edison's company, penniless, humiliated, yet spiritually unbroken. In his journal, he wrote, "The present is theirs. The future for which I work is mine." Soon, fate intervened. A group of investors believed in his vision of alternating current AC. They saw in him not just an inventor, but a prophet of a new world. And so began the war of currents, Tesla versus Edison, light versus greed, faith versus control. But as the newspapers mocked him, Tesla said quietly, "Let them have their laughter." Even God was mocked before he was understood. He didn't seek victory for himself, but for the world he wanted to bless. Tesla's alternating current revolutionized the world. Cities lit up. Factories roared. The impossible became the new normal. At Niagara Falls, his dream came true. Water turned turbines that generated electricity, the first hydroelectric power station in the world. As the lights of Buffalo flickered on for the first time, Tesla whispered, "Now, the world is connected by the hand of God." Crowds cheered. His name reached every corner of America. But fame never interested him. He still refused marriage, saying he was married to the light. Yet, inside, loneliness grew. While others celebrated, Tesla fed pigeons in the park, speaking softly to them. "They understand more than men," he would say. "They don't lie for profit." Still, the more he gave the world, the more it took from him. Patents were stolen. Promises were broken. Edison's allies smeared his name, calling him a dreamer and a madman. But Tesla never cursed them. He believed envy was the tax of the blessed. Then came his greatest dream and his greatest fall. The Wardenclyffe Tower was Tesla's final masterpiece, a massive wireless transmitter built to send energy and communication through the air, free for everyone. "Imagine," he said, "a world where every man can light his home from the earth itself. Energy belongs to God, not to corporations." Investors called him insane. But J.P. Morgan, intrigued by the promise of profit, funded the project. Until Tesla revealed his true purpose: free power for all. Morgan's smile faded. "If anyone can draw power from the air, where do we put the meter?" Tesla simply replied, "You don't." Funding stopped. Workers abandoned the site. The tower stood half-built, a monument to humanity's fear of generosity. Years later, as he watched lightning storms over Long Island, Tesla whispered, "They chose greed over God's gift." He was right, and the world would pay the price. Tesla walked away from the unfinished Wardenclyffe Tower as if leaving behind a tomb. The tower had been his cathedral, a bridge between heaven and earth. Now it stood silent, the world's greatest monument to unrealized faith. His lab emptied. His friends drifted away. But Tesla didn't curse the world. He pitied it. He wrote quietly in his journal, "Money is their god. My God grants energy freely to all who seek it." Each night he wandered the city, staring at the street lamps powered by his invention, yet bearing someone else's name. Children laughed in the glow of lights that were once his dream, but now owned by men who never lifted a tool. He smiled faintly, whispering, "At least they shine." He began to live in small hotels, surviving on little food, obsessed with work that no one funded. Yet his notebooks filled with wonders: flying machines, global wireless networks, death rays, and energy drawn from the Earth's magnetic field. Some would later call these delusions, but modern science would one day prove him right. One evening, a young reporter asked, "Mr. Tesla, how does it feel to be forgotten by the world you helped build?" Tesla paused. "The world remembers the fruit, not the seed. But God remembers the seed." He turned away, leaving the reporter speechless. He didn't know it then, but time itself was preparing his resurrection. By the 1930s, Tesla had become a ghost wandering Manhattan. He fed pigeons in Bryant Park daily, often spending his last coins on seed rather than meals. He spoke to them gently, and they came to him, hundreds at a time. There was one white pigeon he loved more than any invention. He told a friend, "I loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman. When she was sick, I knew, because a light came from her eyes. When she died, something went out of my life." To most, this sounded like madness. But to Tesla, it was the last reflection of divine purity in a corrupted world. Every night he sat by his window, watching lights flicker across the city. He whispered, "Man made the light, but he forgot why God made the darkness." Inside, he was not bitter, only tired. His notebooks became prayers. His formulas became psalms. He began to write more about morality than mechanics, faith than frequency. He said, "Our virtues and our failures are wires through which the divine current flows. The greater our humility, the clearer the light." Even as his body weakened, his vision sharpened. He believed death was not an end, merely a higher vibration, and soon he would reach it. In 1934, Tesla wrote an open letter to humanity. It wasn't about technology, it was a sermon. He warned that mankind was misusing energy, turning divine knowledge into weapons, greed, and vanity. He wrote, "We have become the servants of our tools. The lightning we once worshipped now serves destruction. Only love and faith will return it to its holy purpose." No newspaper published it. Editors thought the old man had lost his mind. But in truth, he was writing for a generation not yet born, a generation that would rediscover his vision in the glow of their screens and satellites. He often said, "If you wish to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." It would take nearly a century for science to realize how right he was. He dreamed that one day people would use his inventions not for profit, but for peace. He said, "When compassion becomes the conductor, the circuit will be complete." He didn't know that his words would one day guide not engineers, but hearts. January 7th, 1943. Room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel. Tesla was 86. He hadn't paid rent for months. His clothes were threadbare. His notebook lay open on the desk, filled with unfinished equations and prayers. He sat by the window watching lightning crackle far beyond the Hudson River. The storm was silent at first. Then a blinding flash illuminated the sky. Witnesses later said the city lights flickered, just for a moment, as though something passed through them. When the maid knocked on his door the next morning, there was no answer. Inside, Nikola Tesla was gone. His hands folded peacefully, as if he had simply stepped into the current he'd always served. The world barely noticed. No headlines, no state funeral, only a small obituary buried beneath the war news. But heaven noticed, and the light above New York that night burned just a little brighter. They seized his papers. Thousands of documents vanished into government vaults, marked top secret. No one knows exactly what was inside. Some say he discovered unlimited energy. Others, a weapon that could end all wars. But one note, scribbled in the margin of his final journal, remained. There is no energy in matter, other than that received from the environment. Years later, physicists would call it the foundation of modern quantum theory. He'd seen what others only guessed, but he didn't seek recognition, only revelation. Decades passed. The world forgot the man who lit it, but then came the resurrection. Documentaries, rediscovered blueprints, and a new age of energy exploration. Children learned his name, companies bore it. Satellites orbited above, powered by principles he once dreamed alone. In the end, his prophecy came true. The present is theirs. The future is mine. Tesla's vision wasn't about machines. It was about mercy. He believed that if power were shared freely, greed would lose its throne. His free energy was never just electricity. It was a symbol of God's grace. He once said, "The gift of power should mirror its source, endless, silent, and given without price." That was his theology in metal and magnetism. Yet what do we do with God's gifts? We patent them. We sell them. We hoard them. Tesla saw this tragedy long before the rest of us. He didn't hate mankind. He forgave it. He saw divine patterns in storms, equations in prayer, and forgiveness in failure. Every invention was a hymn. Every spark, a prayer in motion. But his true invention wasn't electricity. It was faith, translated into science. Today, his name glows in neon, in car logos, in city skylines. But beyond the fame, his soul whispers a warning and a question. Will you use the light to blind or to guide? That's the question Tesla left for every generation after him. He teaches us that faith and reason are not enemies. They are the twin currents that power creation. That genius, without humility, breeds darkness. That service, not success, defines greatness. He never married, never built a family, yet the entire world became his legacy. He died with nothing, yet gave us everything. And maybe that's why when we flip a switch, the light answers instantly. Because somewhere in the unseen, a humble servant once whispered to God, "Let there be light for all." As the fire fades tonight, think about this. Would you still give your gift if the world mocked it? Would you still serve your purpose if no one said thank you? Would you still hold the lightning if it burned your hands? Tesla did. And that's why his story still glows through time. His life reminds us that divine gifts often come wrapped in suffering, that sometimes God hides prophets in laboratories instead of temples, and that faith, real faith, isn't about believing in what you can see. It's about building for a future you'll never live to enjoy. So tonight, as we sit by our fires, powered by the genius of a forgotten saint of science, let's remember that every spark carries a story, every light a legacy, and every moment of inspiration a whisper from above. Thank you for being part of our little fireside circle this evening. If the story touched your heart, share it with the ones you love. And if you'd like to listen to more like it, you know where to find us.